Joining me now is Shahram Hadian. All right, Shahram, short night last night. I don't know. I didn't sleep real well last night, to be honest with you. I'm very concerned for our country. And I told my wife again last night, I said, you know how we felt under the 4 years of the Biden regime, just waiting on them to kick in our door, the FBI? I know you got a visit actually from the FBI. They kept trying to, I think, set you up. I said, I think we're living in a period of time where we don't have to really worry about that right now. But if this trend continues, I think what we faced during the Biden regime will seem like a walk in the park to what's coming. I think we are going to see a merging of the left and the right that's going to, again, put us in the middle with this pincher strategy, as I call it. And I had Annie Cyrus on radio today, and I talked about how the left is taking over MAGA. And it seems like this was an orchestrated setup, the left taking over MAGA. You know, the left likes to go around saying that MAGA is going to be, they're neo-Nazis. They're neo-Nazis, they're fascists, or they're going to be revealed to be neo-Nazis and fascists. And it seems like that's exactly what they set up to have happen. They send people in. I don't know if they send people in, they pay them, or these people are that evil. I'm going to have to assume these people are sit in. You know, and they start and they're mainstreamed and they're boosted, and they start saying this horrific stuff like Nick Fuentes, and then Tucker Carlson's hanging out with him and platforming him, interviewing him, not debating him. And I'm thinking, is this one big gigantic psyop? Is this one gigantic setup to say, we told you that MAGA was a bunch of fascists and neo-Nazis, and now look at how they're talking like fascists and neo-Nazis? They did this to the Tea Party. They destroyed the Tea Party. Is this what's going on here, you think?
Well, I think it's both that. I agree with you 100% that I think there are agents that are sent in. You and I talked about last year that if we don't have an election but a selection process now, that there was going to be a setup of MAGA. There was going to be a setup of Trump, that they would do this under Trump and therefore blame all of us as being authoritative, totalitarian, even though true MAGA, Brandon, as again, we've talked about this, true MAGA is America first. True MAGA is the least amount of government possible. I mean, that's what true MAGA is, true make America great back to its foundation. We believe in limited government. We believe in as much liberty under God as possible. We don't like anything I hate anything totalitarian. I can't even stand to go through TSA now with what they're doing with the facial recognition. I opt out every time. I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want to do that since we can still opt out. But they are co-opting MAGA to set us up to be that totalitarian system. And Trump is obliging, the Trump administration going along with what they've done with digital surveillance, digital ID, going and moving towards the stable coin, the AI push, real ID. I mean, all the stuff they're doing is obliging that. But I do think there's one other element in here beyond the infiltration of it, and that we talked about this last night. This is part of a spiritual element that ultimately, as the Bible has said, there will be a turning against Christians, for a further hating of Christians, true Christians, and there will be a further denying and turning against the Jewish people. America will not stand as an ally of the Jewish people, because the Bible said no nation will stand with them. Only God will stand with them. So I think there's the level of nefarious infiltration. As you said, why is Nick Fuentes now all of a sudden being mainstreamed? The left was going nuts when Nick Fuentes met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago last year. Now, all of a sudden, it's, this is somehow mainstream because, and Annie said this last night, I remember with the exit polls, it's all about Jew hatred and Christian hatred.
Yeah, this seems like a CIA setup. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to the CIA. Because we know they were trying to control Hollywood, use the media, use Hollywood. So why would we not think they're trying to use social media? And so I'm going to just say, my belief is that this is some group inside the CIA or a shadow part of the CIA that maybe even some people just don't even know exists, I just feel like this is a gigantic CIA psyop. And who is going to be caught in the middle but the Christians? Now, didn't we have, and the Jews, didn't we have the last CIA director, John Brennan, admit he voted for Gus Hall, the communist presidential candidate in the 1970s? And then many think he converted to Islam. So if you have this kind of pro-communist, pro-Islamic ideology inside the CIA, which to some degree I think you do, I mean, didn't we have the white hats try to bring the Shah to power?
Yes.
And then the black hats tore him down. So, I mean, at some point you have to wonder what part, who's controlling, who gets in there and gets control. I don't know. But this CIA has a history of making partnerships with communists and Islamists. And some of them that are in those agencies having voted for communist candidates or converting to Islam. So why would I not ask the question, is there some dark element of the CIA that's behind this information operation when they have a long history of wanting to control and controlling aspects of movies, Hollywood, media? Why not social media as well, right, Shahram?
No, I agree with that, absolutely. Like you said, there has been a very well documented element of that influence within our intelligence, or this deep intelligence, dark intelligence. And I don't, honestly, I don't know how many white hats are left. I mean, that's really the question, right? Is how many white hats are actually left in the CIA? But I think that this also, you can add to that it's not just an element within this nation, it is a globalist element, because ultimately they have to destroy sovereignty, national sovereignty. They have to be able to implement this red-green access. And as we talked about last night as well, Brandon, I do think that the globalists have given the tip, the hat, to Islam to be the central figure. That's why they're allowing, I mean, how much documented evidence was there that there was foreign interference in the New York City mayoral race, that Pakistan and foreign nations were involved in trying to influence this election?
Well, don't we have Linda Sassour bragging about that?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And there's a Pakistani organization within New York that was bragging about that they basically controlled. Linda Sarsour said that they basically controlled not only CARE, the Muslim Brotherhood, but an element of a foreign government in this case, controlling a candidate for office. I mean, since Sarsour, her video that she did, she was very confident that, look, we will control Zoran.
Yeah.
We will hold them accountable, very flippantly, very matter of fact, that this is a puppet.
Yeah,
this
in fact, here's the clip. Here is Linda Sassour, who's Muslim Brotherhood, correct?
Absolutely, 100% Muslim Brotherhood.
And she's good friends with Yasser Qadi.
There you go.
The Jew-hating, Holocaust-denying, Hitler-defending, jihad-preaching imam that James White did an interfaith dialogue with, and his buddy Phil Johnson, executive director of John MacArthur's Grace to You, defended up one wall and down the other, including some tweet that we have in our file and saved, the fact of, well, who says that interfaith dialogue isn't some kind of gospel initiative? Remember that?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
I blame a lot of this, by the way, on people like Justin Peters, Phil Johnson, James White, the guys in the mailroom at Grace to You. I mean, I hang a lot of this around John MacArthur. He knew what was going on. He and I were emailing. He knew. He didn't get his house in order. There's a lot more to say. He was compromising with interfaith dialogue and James White and platforming him over and over, even after we called him out. He was platforming neo-Calvinist, hyper-Calvinist, social justice warriors on his platform, including one of the worst of all, John Piper, who really is, I think, an anti-Semite with his twisting of scripture, quoting Romans 11, stops at verse 28, but doesn't want to quote verses 29 and 30 and 31 that say that my promises are irrevocable. I mean, John MacArthur, I think, has done, and I'm going to say this point blank, John MacArthur, I think, is one of the biggest detriments to the modern evangelical church with his false gospel, and he has split hundreds of churches. I think when we all get to glory, we're going to find out John MacArthur was used mightily, not of the Lord. And I think that's the fruit coming from people like Phil Johnson and their proteges, Justin Peters, who also has a false gospel, in my opinion, which is ironic because they run around teaching this mixture of justification with sanctification for a works gospel. And yet his whole shtick, Justin Peters' whole shtick is he wants to call out false teachers. Well, he should call himself out because I think he is one. What say you?
I definitely think that he is a false teacher. And obviously the clip that we played last night of him saying that Islam was not a threat to any Christian, no Christian would ever be deceived by Islam, which is absolutely ludicrous because we have so many examples. I mean, I can't tell you all the sob stories that I've sat with families who daughters have been pulled away from the Christian faith because they met some, hunky Muslim guy in university and now became a Muslim, converted to Islam. So that's just ludicrous. But remember, Brandon, Justin Peters was defending James White, was defending Phil Johnson. These guys are all, there's no doubt they have a false gospel. There's no doubt that their works-based gospel is false. It's not biblical. And as such, their view of the sovereignty of God is warped. And because of that, they will, Justin Peters is a hypocrite. He will come out, right? And I mean, that he built his own ministry is on calling out false teachers. And yet, when it was in his own camp, that's really when it matters, right? When it really matters, your integrity really matters when it's in your own camp, because that's when the rubber hits the road. Are you still willing to go and do the hard thing when it's in your own camp? And he showed, nope, he's cowardly. He wasn't willing to go after James White and just do what we said, is just correct him. Just say, hey, James, you made an error. Repent of this error of interfaith, and also repent of the fact that, you know what? Yeah, guys, I didn't know who Yasser Qadhi was. I should have listened to other people. But what did James White do? What did Justin Peters do and Phil Johnson? They disparaged us. They destroyed us. The fall of America and whatever happens to Christians in America as a result of this red-green axis Islamic takeover is squarely on the shoulder of those false teachers.
100%.
It's squarely on the shoulder of that false church, in my opinion.
100%. John MacArthur and all of those, Phil Johnson, all those guys are going to have a lot, I think, to answer for how they have set up the church in so many ways. And it was interesting is I had folks, by the way, when I would point this out a few years ago, one guy emailed me and he said, his name, I know what you mean. He texts me and emails me. And he said, Keith is his name. I won't give his last name. He said, when you would say this a few years ago, I thought, you've lost your mind. When you would say this stuff about John MacArthur and these guys, you've lost your mind. He said, then we went to a church of one of his disciples, one of the people that came out of his organization, his schools. And he said, it all dawned. He said, it was like a light went on. He said, I realize now everything Brandon's been saying and trying to warn us about these people is 100% true. And he says the same things we say now, but even harsher than we are, way harsher than we are. And he doesn't even think these people are believers. He thinks they're bound for hell unless they repent, that they show no fruits of being believers. What I'm trying to say is what we're saying tonight may shock people because that's what the Bible says. Even the elect will be deceived if it were possible. But what we're finding is many Christians are waking up and coming back around and saying, now we realize why you were warning about this false church, in your book, The Coming Religious Reich and others. And I believe you're right. As America is seeing this takeover by the Marxists and the Islamists, it's not just the politicians. It's going to be many of the so-called pastors and evangelicals, leaders that turned us over or made the church in America defanged and impotent and told us that, interfaith dialogue, who says that's not a gospel initiative? Or, Islam is not a threat to the church. Folks, you are being set up by a false church, which is what my whole book, The Coming Religious Reich, in 2015 was all about. And isn't it interesting? It's called A Coming Religious Reich. And many of these people are doing the same thing that you see what's going on in Germany, right? Now, here is Linda Saussure, and there's the book from 2015, The Coming Religious Right, exposing the sinister influence sweeping the world toward a satanic global empire. Well, here's Linda Saussure, who worked with Yasser Qadhi, who James White was doing his interfaith dialogue with, which these so-called Christians were defending. Listen to what she says about the new mayor of New York.
Right now, I'm a little more quiet because I'm on the quiet side of this race, but I'm going to tell you that once November 4th comes around, I will tell the story. The story is not just, that it's random that Zahran ascended to this place. It is our Muslim American communities. And I'll also say that it's Muslim money. The PACs that have supported Zahran, or a particular PAC that has supported Zahran, is probably over 80% of Muslim American donors in this country, high net donors, grassroots donors. And I want to make the point that the Unity and Justice Fund PAC, which is the CARE Super PAC, was the largest institutional donor to the pro-Zahran PAC in New York.
Okay, CARE, as you will see in my new book, maybe we can show a copy of that, just came out Monday. My new book came out Monday based on my 2019 11 hours on Muslim Brotherhood, CARE, Hamas. I turned it into a little booklet. What is it, guys? 54 pages? October 7th comes to America inside the U.S. network of Hamas. Okay. She just said CARE was the biggest donor to Mamdani. That's CARE's Hamas. Okay. Muslim Brotherhood planted and built Hamas in 87 and CARE in 94. So who just put him in power? Basically Hamas. Yeah. Right? The groups are all tied together, and that can be shown through lots of documentation. So notice, again, the Tucker Carlsons, the Nick Fuentes's, these other people run around and talk about the Jews. But why do none of them want to ever talk about the Islamic money, which, again, they're 24% of the world population, as I keep saying over and over. The Jews are 0.02%. And I want to show some new clips tonight that we edited. And because we had to take out all the cussing.
Before you do that, just really quick, because this did not come out last night. I think we were off air by the time Mamdani gave his victory speech.
Yes, we were.
And so you said this last night, and I'm just highlighting what you said, that if people missed it, because you pointed out that why is it that when it comes to someone like Mamdani, who Linda Sarsour, as you said, just admitted that it is Muslim money, Muslim super PACs, the Unity and Justice super PAC that we've been warning about, that they've been funneling to all their candidates across the country, that she says 80%. So he said this: the conventional wisdom would tell you that I am far from a perfect candidate. And then he talks about his age. He says, I am a Muslim. I am a Democrat socialist. And the most damning of all, I refuse to apologize to any of this.
I think I have that clip, actually. Let's see. I think this is it.
Yeah.
Where the more than 1 million Muslims know that they belong. Not just in the 5 boroughs of this city, but in the halls of power. No more will New York be a city where you can traffic in Islamophobia and win an election.
Okay, that's not the clip, but what he's basically saying is, in New York, we want to go after anyone that says the truth about Islam. Let's see. He did. I thought I had it queued up, guys. I have so many clips queued up. Maybe you can find it where he said that. He said, I am a Muslim. And he talked about his whole worldview, as you just said. Because you're right. We got off the air last night. Here we go. I think I just found it. If not, it's still a good clip to play. Listen, and we'll just see what this one is. Here we go.
If anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him. And if there is any way to terrify a despot, it is by dismantling the very conditions that allowed him to accumulate power. This is not only how we stop Trump, it's how we stop the next one. So, Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up. Trumps of our city have grown far too comfortable taking advantage of their tenants. We will put an end to the culture of corruption that has allowed billionaires like Trump to evade taxation and exploit tax breaks. We will stand alongside unions and expand labor protections because we know, just as Donald Trump does, that when working people have ironclad rights, the bosses who seek to extort them become very small indeed. New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant. So hear me, President Trump, when I say this. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us.
All right. Well, that was not the clip, but that was instructive. But we did find it, and here it is. Roll it, please, Logan.
After all, the conventional wisdom would tell you that I am far from the perfect candidate. I am young, despite my best efforts to grow older. I am Muslim. I am a democratic socialist. And most damning of all, I refuse to apologize for any of this.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about. And you know, today, and I brought this up on radio, today, that little wimp, Mike Johnson, I mean, is it just me or does he just give you the Pee Wee Herman vibe, right?
Yeah.
Just a wimpy little guy. He couldn't even find the guts to say the word Islam. I watched his speech. I never heard it. Muslim, Islam. Here's what he said.
Republican side, and it will be even more favorable once all the redistricting stuff is settled out. We have Democrats who are flailing. They have no leader. Their national leader now, as we've noted, is Mondami. He's a communist. Good luck with that.
Yeah, he's a communist. Well, what about he's an Islamist, first and foremost?
Yeah.
What,
yes.
Right? I mean, I don't see the GOP fixing the problem because I see the GOP is now down licking the boots of the Islamists, whether Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia. Apparently, the GOP wants to be the, is it the dhimmi? Is that the word? They want to be the dhimmi?
Yes, the dhimmi. Exactly.
They want to be the dhimmi. Explain what that means.
Well, they're okay being second class. They're okay being subjugated as long as they get a piece of the pie, right? So as long as the money is flowing from these Islamic nations into America, Brandon, they're okay being subjugated, and that's what they're allowing themselves to do. To be dhimmi or dhimmitude is to accept subjugation, is to give up the fight and accept this is the status quo, and these guys now are leading. And by extension, you then are second class, you're lesser than, you're saying you're beholden to them, you're saying that you're reliant on them, being the Islamic movement, and with CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood and Linda Sarsour, what they're trying to communicate is that they now have the blueprint, right? They now have the blueprint for every major city in America. Because Brandon, name me a city, a city that is larger than 150,000 people or more, that is not Democrat controlled, that is not Democrat, and it's not just Democrat, it's now the Democrat socialists. Last night in Minneapolis, 4 Democrat socialists were elected to the Minneapolis City Council. 4 Democrat socialists. Now, I don't know if you could say Minneapolis dodged the bullet with Jacob Frey retaining the mayorhood over Omar Fateh. He only lost by about 4 percentage points. Fateh did, the Somali Muslim. But this is now the blueprint. They have found their blueprint, and they have found that there's no opposition. The Republicans, as you said, thank you for saying this, by the way. The Republicans will give no opposition to this. because they can't. Mamdani comes out, Brandon, and says, before he says he's a Democrat socialist, he says, I'm a Muslim. So what does that tell you about the order of what he said? And yet neither Trump, nor the Republicans, nor Mike Johnson, nor any of these people can actually come out and say, well, look, he said he's a Muslim. He said that's his allegiance. He said that Linda Sarsour just said there's no way he would have won without the 80% of the funds coming in from the Muslim community. So maybe we should be paying attention to what's right in front of our faces. No, let's just focus on calling him a communist Marxist and just play this game. This is a shell game. You said it at the beginning. It's a shell game. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to. They're selling out America, city by city, step by step, and
if we watched so-called evangelical leaders sell out the church during 2017 with James White and Yasser Qadhi, who's Muslim Brotherhood, why would we be shocked that if so-called pastors will sell out the church, why would we be shocked that politicians wouldn't sell out America?
Exactly.
Right? I think in some ways, God allowed 2017 to happen to us, as hard as it was to have our families attacked. You were called a fake, weren't you? Usama was called a fake. They doxed my home address. They doxed where I went to church, even after they knew that a gunman from Saudi Arabia had come into our conference and did 7 months for threatening you and I while we were speaking. They knew all that. That was all out there. They knew that. There's no way they didn't. Right. And yet they still were doing what they were saying, what they're saying, because I think, again, shows the fruit where they were coming from. And it's coming from a demonic side, I believe. And by the way, a lot of evangelicals still blind to all this. But, you know, if they did their homework and went to Brent Detweiler, why not bring up the website of Brent Detweiler? He has a whole long series of articles you should read on Phil Johnson and John MacArthur and that brood of vipers. That's how I describe it. And I think he's a former pastor, a pastor himself, right? So if we would have these so-called pastors selling out the church, you guys should all read it. And BrentDetweiler.com, type in Phil Johnson. I think you'll find a whole long list of all these articles about John MacArthur and Phil Johnson. All of you should read. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, absolutely.
BrentDetweiler.com. You should all read it. You should all read. I mean, you guys are all being so fooled. It's not funny.
Well, and Brandon, you covered post that time, right? If you remember post 2017, we spent probably the next year and a half, and we covered a lot of things that were exposed about what was going on at Grace to You, with the elders, with MacArthur, with his allegations about the civil rights, with his allegations about Edgar,
his football career, Edgar Mevers, his brother working with Charles Evers, Medgar Evers being the first civil rights martyr, and being in a room with Charles Evers, which Charles says on audio has never happened. His MacArthur's claims about his NFL football career, which in and of themselves is just ludicrous. I mean, but no, people don't want to believe the truth. I think so-called Christians and even some non-discerning Christians, they love being fooled. I think they really like to be fooled. I really do. I think they enjoy it.
They don't have the capacity, honestly, like when you bring this stuff up, let's say if we bring up something about the Charlie Kirk assassination and say, was there an element that a deep state was involved in that? Because so much of the facts just don't seem to make sense. And then now, I don't know, I'm sure you may have seen this, but, there's some controversy about Rob McCoy and his son. Right. Because his son, he claims his son said he had blood all over him. And there's video out there that his son didn't have blood over him. Mickey McCoy, whatever, the chief of staff, Mikey. He's the chief of staff, right, for Turning Point. And so what happens is we lose credibility. And I think that I've heard Christians say, I don't want to know. I just don't want to know because I don't want to imagine if that's true. Because we're sort of in this bubble. And I think that's what it is here, that when you understand the backstory, because we delved into it, because we were pulled into it because of the attacks against us, because really our issue was with the interfaith dialogue initially, was with James White, John MacArthur's organization.
It was with what we're dealing with now. The takeover of America by Hamas / Muslim Brotherhood.
Yes.
That was our issue.
And
we never brought up John MacArthur. We never brought up John MacArthur. We just all of a sudden started getting attacked by his people. And even he refused to do anything when I reached out to him, even though he and I had been emailing with each other, because he didn't want to, because the good old boy is too important. The same way he brought false teachers Al Mohler and Mark Dever and John Piper onto his platform over and over and over. He didn't care. I don't think he cared at all that he was coverting with false teachers. He didn't care.
No, because again, as we talked about, when your loyalty to the good old boys club overrides your loyalty to the Word of God and to your integrity in Christ, then you make these decisions. And like you said, had Grace to You come out and said, we totally condemn what James White did. We do not in any way support interfaith. It was unbiblical, and we do call him out for it, and he should repent. We would have been like, okay, that's all we were asking for, was that just come out and say, look, this practice, because also, remember what they said at the end of that. The biggest issue that came out of the interfaith was not his slobbering over Yasser Qadhi and he's my mentor and, I love this guy. I thought they were going to give a bro hug at some point.
He actually said at the end, we're going to have to hold hands, the Muslims and the Christians, when persecution comes.
That was my point right there. That was the worst thing. That was the most dangerous part of that whole thing. Besides the spiritual deception, unlike what Justin Peters says, the worst part of that was when persecution comes to America, he said, it is Muslims and Christians that are going to be holding hands. So that's why we asked the question when now they're building Epic in Texas. Now we're having Muslim cities taken over by Muslim mayors. We're having the first Muslim lieutenant governor in America.
We had October 7th.
We had October 7th. Then you remember we asked this question a few months ago. Where are they now? Why are we not hearing one peep out of James White, Justin Peters, or any of these
Phil Johnson, none of them.
Phil Johnson, yeah. Where are they now? Where are they now saying, this is not good for America. This is not good for our Judeo-Christian foundation, because they're going to turn these cities into lawless. Mamdani wants to talk about despotism. Welcome to New York City, folks. Watch how New York City will turn into a despotism, because once lawlessness fully breaks out, the Muslims will take further control, and it's despotism under Sharia. It may not be despotism under Marxism or communism per se. It will be despotism under Sharia control, because they will be the solution to the problem which they caused in the first place. But
so the pastors have turned us over, a lot of them. The pastors have turned us over. Now the politicians are turning us over.
There you go.
And so what we were saying is maybe what happened in 2017 was actually a blessing, because it started to allow us to get ready and then to prepare our audience, right?
Yes.
And we've been hammering on this so hard, but don't be shocked. For whatever reason, the so-called pastors, quote pastors, not all of them, talking about a specific group here, have helped this all happen. And now the politicians are selling out for the money. And now we have people who are so foolish, Romans 1 fools. Watch these ladies. They're excited about Sharia now, Shahram. Watch this.
Sharia law starts now.
Sharia law starts now.
Sharia law starts now. Absolutely. Zohran Mamdani, Islamic Caliphate, our brother in Islam, Islamic Caliphate of New York, starts today, baby.
Really? I mean, these women, they don't really realize what all this means. I guess it sounds fashionable. There was a time where communism sounded fashionable. I remember going back and reading a lot of the writings of folks warning about communism during the Cold War and communism trying to penetrate our schools and universities. And they made communism sound fashionable and intellectual. And I think that same thing is happening with Islam.
It's been happening for a long time, Brandon. I mean, remember when the feminist groups began to push for hijab days, right? Wear a hijab day. And so this is going to be wonderful for women, feel like what it's like to be a Muslim woman. It's liberating. The claim that Muhammad liberated women, which is just ludicrous. I mean, look, these women should get in the room with Annie Cyrus So they should get in the room with Annie Cyrus and have Annie tell them her story of what she endured, or any other woman who's come out of Sharia.
Or just watch the videos in Europe where the women are being raped
Yes.
on the subways,
Yes.
raped
Yes.
on the street.
Yes. Well, there was a woman, I just saw an interview about 4 or 5 days ago. It was on social media. I think it was like on Instagram. I should have saved it, but it was a gal that was talking about that now as she walks through Dearborn, that women are getting spit on. Women are getting called every name if they're not wearing a hijab. So these women are sitting in a restaurant, Brandon. They're not wearing a hijab. They're drinking alcohol with loud music. Oh, by the way, all of that will be forbidden under Sharia. All of that is against Sharia, ladies. So you talked about useful idiots. You talked about the epitome of Roman I fools. There you go. Mm-hmm. And but again, you could say to these ladies, well, they don't know any better. But the spiritual leadership that comes within the church, the arrogance of someone like a James White or a Justin Peters that claim to be these incredible scholars, and they're the ones who are warning about false teaching in the church, and yet the number one false teaching, the number one false gospel is Islam. The number one antichrist spirit is Islam. It's right in their faces, and they're so compromised. And on top of that, the church is being succumbed with this Jew hatred that I was talking to a pastor friend this morning, Brandon, and we said, it's like a hook. It's like once they get hooked, it's like Tucker Carlson or any of these people, once they get hooked with this Jew hatred, it's like a spirit that just pulls them fully in. It's like they're sucked in to not even being able to think clearly while they're platforming people like Nick Fuentes.
And speaking of Nick, look where he's now. MAGA failed. A blue wave just happened, and the Groypers, that's what he calls his followers, are jubilant. We're winning, and in 2028, we're playing for the White House. I mean, if this doesn't show everybody what's going on here, right? And yet, the Heritage Foundation leader wanted to try to defend Tucker. I mean, that guy should be fired. I think if you give any money to the Heritage Foundation, you're pretty stupid at this point. I mean, this is what is happening. And I think it's by design. I think I will be really, really shocked if the Democrats don't take the House in 2026. I'll be very shocked if a Republican can win in 2028. And it's been because we didn't have people stand up and be leaders. We decided people other than a few of us out here in the listening audience as well, we have people that want to either ignore this and say, oh, it doesn't matter. This is not a threat to the church. Or they want to actually protect their good old boy club. Just like they wanted to protect the good old boy club of James White, Phil Johnson, and all those guys wanted to protect their good old boy club, right? Well, that's going on today. You see Megyn Kelly, the leader of Heritage Foundation, all these guys are trying to protect the good old boy club, right? Yeah. And it always seems to be about access. Well, they can platform me at their conference. They can interview me. It seems like at the end of the day, it all comes down to money, right? The love of money, promotion, bookings, more audience, money. Comes down to money. And so I don't know what these folks are thinking, but I've had to edit a few of these. Logan, you ready for this one? He says, Jews are running society. Women just need to shut the blank up. Blacks need to be in prison for the most part, and we would live in paradise. It's that simple, end quote. Now, this again, folks, is what I believe is the psychological operation. This guy, when everyone's being deplatformed and being shadow banned or being told you can't post this, you can't post that, somehow this guy is able to just take off like wildfire. Tell me there's not somebody, some group allowing this to happen for some advantage, which includes let's penetrate MAGA. We'll then be able to say, we told you they were neo-Nazis. We told you they were racist. We told you they were fascist. We told you they were misogynist. We told you they were xenophobe, Islamophobic, whatever. You're going to now see it and kiss it goodbye 2026 and 2028 because supposedly the leaders of the party from Mikey Johnson, Mr. Yellow Belly, in my opinion, the exact opposite of masculinity, Mikey Johnson, and you can't fix what you look like. And I'm not attacking what he looks like or his stature or his lack of being built like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can still be masculine because you have strong conviction and passion for what is right, and you're uncompromising, and you're willing to call out error and lies, and that makes people masculine. And you don't see that in a Mikey Johnson, the Speaker of the House. He doesn't even have the guts to say Islam. And so this is who is now allowing the destruction of this party. Oh, well, Mike Johnson says, we can't tolerate that. We don't like that. You know what? Then you can do a lot better than that. Why don't you do what we're doing? Why don't you actually use your power and all your budgets to actually systematically refute and destroy these ideas and philosophies? Because you don't dare say the word Islam, which is where a lot of this is coming from, I think. It's being funded by a red-green axis to destroy the groups that were lining up to shut down the border and stop the infiltration of our country. And the Islamists don't like it. The Marxists don't like it. And surely the globalists, as we've been saying for decades, the globalists are using the Islamists and the Marxists as the junkyard dog to destroy America and bring the chaos and then offer up the solution, which is getting us all chipped like cattle and saying now we can deal with all the chaos and all the crime and all the violence because now we can, everyone will be on their best behavior, as Larry Ellison said. Well, listen to this by Nick Fuentes and realize this is who some of the America First MAGA people are hanging out with. And he himself is all about America First. Yet he's being embraced by MAGA people. Watch this.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple. It's literally that simple. Anyway.
And that guy has gone viral. He's got a huge following. And people who say, oh, his following isn't that big. Because I've had some people that I really like. They're good friends of mine. I respect them in their area of expertise. But they're like, this guy's following isn't that big. I'm sorry. You're in your 60s and you're a little out of touch, which is not hard to happen when you get into your 50s and 60s. But thankfully, I have some 20-somethings in the control room who are telling me this guy is huge. Anyone telling you he doesn't have millions of followers, they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. He is the biggest. He has the biggest show on Spotify. He did for a day. When they let him on, they've now canceled him, but when they let him on, he had the biggest show on Spotify. Logan, I wish you had a microphone in there, but tell me whatever you want the audience to know about this guy when it comes. He's bigger than Tucker, harder following than any podcaster with young people. In general.
Yeah.
Especially young people, but in general. Now, if you don't think we have failed, the modern church hasn't failed on the issue of worldviews and explaining the 6 dominant worldviews includes Islam, we have. Because we have people who run around saying they're Christians that are supporting this or that are intrigued by it, that are listening to it. We have had some folks in their early 20s that we have had to educate very quickly on this. Logan has had some of his friends that were starting to listen to this guy. And we had to say, look, here's what's going on. Here's the reality. Here's what you need to know. And they're like, whoa, thank you. Because they were being sucked in. But it's not just 20-somethings, right, Logan? He's only on Rumble. It's the clips that everyone gets drawn into. They're all over TikTok, and it's the clips, and they really get drawn in by the clips, he's saying. And isn't that interesting that Rumble, so you're telling me this conservative site Rumble is where he gets the most traction? That's the only platform he's allowed on. He's not allowed on any other platform. Now, people say, well, I'm not for censoring people and deplatforming people. Fine. But I don't understand why supposed conservative sites couldn't and don't say, but yeah, there's a point, though, where our company has standards and we're not going to be inciting violence, right? And I think this guy incites violence. Doesn't he talk about chopping off minorities' hands? And he said he'd like to see the CCP take over and do it. Do you have that clip? You got another clip by him? What's the next one? All right, let's roll this one. Here we go.
It's a long primary season, and Groypers have been chomping at the bit to get involved, and they're everywhere. They have been chomping at the bit. What can I do? I want to get involved. In 2028, it's going to be a long primary season because we'll be there at every stop with homemade signs, and people drive out. People will go where they are summoned, and we will get the message out, and we will play hardball. And we'll make everybody know it's going to be a referendum on Israel first and America first. And if we win, we win. And if they lose, we win. If a Jewish money-controlled Republican candidate loses, we still win. I'm happy to see it, actually. We have to be willing to play hardball if we want to win. We have leverage. We have to use it. Can't always surrender and eat. Have to be willing to walk away from the table. That's exactly what we're going to do. And we have to steel ourselves because they will try to take me out, I'm sure, at some point. They will try to kill me. They will try to destroy me in some way. We have to be bullheaded and stubborn, and we have to resist gaslighting, attempts to change the conversation, throw a wrench in things. We have to keep the frame. America first, Israel first. Are you loyal to America? Are you not? Do we have sovereignty? Do we not? And by the way, we can end this at any time when the Israel lobby is ready to acquiesce. When the pro-Israel side is ready to acquiesce to America first, when they are ready to wave the white flag and surrender, it can all be over.
Can we hold it right there? Just hold it right there for a second.
For Jack Posobiec.
Hold it right there. Why not Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates? When you're ready, CARE, Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, when you're ready to acquiesce, when you're ready to be America first, instead of funding the downfall of America and making us dimmy, then we'll wave, then we can, stop this. But until then, we're going hard. No. I mean, you see how dumb this is? This is 0.02% of the population versus 24% of the population. Qatar, $40 billion, it said, just in propaganda to the universities. If this isn't also Iranian backed at some level.
Yes.
Because if you are trying to take over a country, which clearly Islamists want to, it's what we put in my documentaries that they want to take over. If you want to take over, you need to have a massive distraction to take over, do you not? And so the massive distraction is, let's blame it on the Jews. Okay? Here, let me play a little bit from my documentary, Siege, which came out in 2018. Okay, watch this, Shahram. No, Sabotage, which came out in 2018.
What is the upper house and what is the lower house in Islam, and how close are they to achieving the upper house in America, and what are the signs they're getting close?
There's a two-house concept. Now, catch this. Here's the name of the lower house, the name of the house of the unbelievers or the kuffar, the filth, the infidels. It's called Dar al-Harb, the house of war. Isn't that nice? It's a house of war. The upper house is, of course, Dar al-Islam, the house of Islam. And very quickly, I'll give you some conditions that happen in those two houses. In the house of war, or the unbeliever, the Islamic movement is at a constant state of war. Well, wait, hold on. I thought we were told Islam is a religion of peace. I thought Islam doesn't promote hatred or intolerance or violence. No, no, no. They are in a constant state of war until when? Until they get to the upper house. The nation is considered enemy land, that nation that is an unbelieving land. They preach plurality in religion by saying, Surah 2256, there's no compulsion. We're not going to force anybody. Lying is permissible in the lower house to the unbeliever. Do you know that in the Sharia law manual, there's a section on the permissibility of lying? I missed that part in the Bible. Does anybody know where the verse in the Bible that allows us to lie? Sharia compliance for Muslims is flexible based on what they're able to do. Sharia compliance for non-Muslims is, number one, denied. Then slowly, as they get closer to the upper house, it's defended. It's, you hear this, it's just misunderstood. Now, let's get to the upper house. When is the upper house declared? The upper house must be declared by a consensus among Islamic authority. Clerics, imams, Islamic centers, Muslim jurists. They declare, as they have in Europe, that now Europe is Dar al-Islam. By the way, they don't need 50% of the population. They don't need 30% of the population. In fact, according to the Muslim Brotherhood, they could potentially flip a nation with 8% of the population. The House of Islam now, when it's declared Dar al-Islam, belongs to Islam, meaning they're not going to leave. They're going to fight to the death to give it up. There is no longer plurality in religion. There's no compulsion, goes out the window, because now there is compulsion in observance of Surah 9, where is the final verse given to Muhammad in the Quran. Sharia is in full effect for Muslims and non-Muslims. And finally, the conditions of dimitude, meaning the subjugation of non-Muslims under Islamic law, is instituted when they get the upper house. Other than that, they want to coexist. So this is what is not understood. Now, in America, Brandon's question was, in America, how close are we? I would argue mainly for two reasons. Because of the hyper-political activities that we just showed you, based off the hyper-political activities of the Muslim Brotherhood, and because of the fact that you've gone from Sharia denial to Sharia defense to now Sharia promotion. Sharia is wonderful. Sharia is not bad. That is giving us indication. And I would argue that they had open doors like never before under the first Muslim in the White House, Barack Hussein Obama.
Dawood Walid, he wrote an editorial attacking the political candidates in Michigan for governor and for House, calling them fearmongers and haters for having the audacity to bring up their concerns about implementation of Sharia law in Michigan. But Dawood said too much in his editorial. The very last closing paragraph, he said that Muslims in Michigan are already practicing Sharia and that they should explain it to the non-Muslim public and that they shouldn't apologize for it. We have come to a transition point from denial to normalization to ultimate implementation. And don't think that any other state is immune from this, because there's indicators all over the country.
Let me ask you this. How many Muslims in Sioux Falls? Everybody take a year and just bring one Muslim. So it will be 8,000. Right? And then the next year, the after year, we are 8. Become 16,000. I'm not bring the Muslim from outside, no. I don't want to talk about, go to Egypt and change it. Go to Syria and change it. No, talking change here. You are here, your duty to work in this community. We want to change at least this society. Start with the idea. Now we have 4,000. Want to make it like in 10 years, 100,000. Make it reasonable. 50,000. We are 4,000 right now. It would happen.
Wow. That was 7 years ago.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible?
Richard Wurmbrand, who spent 14 years in a Romanian communist prison, said about all the liberal clergy in America that the communists were so excited about. He said, they don't have to win you for communism. They just have to win you for a left-wing Christianity that supports and allows for communism. Well, that's exactly what we see going on, I think, with the likes of James White and Justin Peters and Phil Johnson and Grace to You and all the other hyper-Calvinist cult followers that were out there defending James White, attacking us for just playing video clips and telling the truth. These people who I believe are being used mightily by Satan That's what I believe theologically. They don't have to win us for Islam. They don't even have to agree with Islam. They just have to be used by Satan to get a big chunk of so-called Christians and so-called evangelicals to be okay with Islam under the guidance of they've been brought here for us to reach with the gospel.
Right.
That interfaith dialogue is the gospel opportunity. Even though we know what interfaith dialogue is, it's a violation of the scripture, which says don't be involved in spiritual enterprises where you sit around and act like you believe in the same Jesus or the same God. Don't do that. 2 Corinthians 6:14-17. They just need to be used to get the so-called Christians in America not to accept Islam, just to be willing to, not to practice it, not to convert, but just to be able to, quote, coexist with it. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I would say coexist and not resist, right? They kind of go together, right? Because if you coexist, you won't resist. Because look, Brandon, whenever Islam has been resisted throughout its 1400-year history, it's been pushed back. Wherever Islam has been resisted, the resistance has been successful in pushing it back if the people have the ability to be armed, and I don't mean just, resistance through force, through armies, through politics, through the pulpits. So what you showed from 7 years ago and what has happened, I hadn't watched that clip in a while, what then we were talking about and what now has happened. And you just said it. We get to the point where the country willingly becomes dhimmi, they subjugate, and there's no longer resistance. And CARE, being the main branch of the Muslim Brotherhood in regards to their political advocacy, in some states, like here in Tennessee, we have a group called AMAC, the American Muslim Center. I'm trying to remember what the other A stands for, but they sort of operate like CARE here, where they lobby legislators. They have Muslim days at the Capitol. They push for their bills. In fact, they were able to get the state of Tennessee to push forth vouchers, school vouchers, taxpayer-funded school vouchers, which are now funding Islamic schools in Tennessee. So and you heard me right, Islamic schools in Tennessee are being funded by a Republican government. So this is what they do. And this is how effective they are. And the spiritual leadership, Brandon, the Church of Jesus Christ is supposed to be a restraining force. We know that when the Holy Spirit is removed one day, there will no longer be a restrainer on the earth. But in the meantime, while we are here and the Spirit of God is living in us as believers, we are to restrain evil and not have, as you said, unbiblical spiritual enterprise and not fellowship with darkness. Have nothing to do with darkness. Have nothing to do with the spirit of Belial or the spirit of Antichrist. And yet, when we have failed, or worse, because I can't say that James White or Phil Johnson or Justin Peters or any of these hyper-Calvinist evangelicals are ignorant. I don't think they're ignorant. I think they knew exactly what they were doing. Wow. I think they knew exactly what they were doing in softening up, kind of giving us some punches, right? And that's what they did to us, right?
Right.
They bloodied us up.
As an example to others, don't you dare do what these guys are doing.
That's right.
Which isn't it interesting that most of their followers, by the way, whether they are or not, most of their followers, a lot of them at least, adhere to replacement theology. So again, here they're making a way for Islam, which is making a way to come against Christians and Jews and those Christian dispensationalists. And many of them, by the way, now are leaky dispensationalists, which means they're really not dispensationalists at all. They're folding. but many of their adherents were followers of replacement theology. So when we were warning about Islam's rise and what it would mean for Christians, but also for the Jews, many of them, I don't think, care about the Jews because they're into replacement theology. God's not using the Jews. What do I care, right? So, and a lot of them are into Reconstructionism and dominion theology, right?
Yes.
Listen to this as well. This is a kind of, I haven't watched these in a long time either. Watch this, Sharon.
Yeah.
Sharam Hadian was born in Iran and is a former Muslim. Sharam's family escaped from Iran 6 weeks before the fall of the Shah. Sharam and Usama Dakdak were my strongest allies in exposing the interfaith dialogue that neo-Calvinist James White conducted in 2017, right here in the Memphis, Tennessee area where I live. James White conducted an interfaith dialogue with a Jew-hating, Holocaust-denying, Hitler-defending, jihadi-preaching imam by the name of Yasser Qadi. As revealed in our documovie Sabotage, James White claimed to sense a kindred spirit with jihadi Yasser Qadi. We have it on video. He also called on Jihadi Yadi to make a video to teach evangelicals the true face of Islam. Again, it's all on video in our last documovie, Sabotage, available at sabotagethemovie.com. Despite the huge compromise by James White, he has continued to be booked to speak at neo-Calvinist and hyper-Calvinist churches and conferences, including speaking for the seminary and church of Pastor John MacArthur. For those that don't know who John MacArthur is, well, he has a radio broadcast on hundreds of Christian stations throughout America. Apparently, John MacArthur has changed his position on interfaith dialogue, as evident by his continued promotion and hosting of James White. As you will hear soon, MacArthur has not only caved to interfaith dialogue proponents, but has also caved to the social justice proponents. Sadly, countless American evangelicals are also now practicing John MacArthur's horrific compromise. Well, would you be shocked that James White is now using the Muslim Brotherhood pejorative of Islamophobia? I agree with my friend Sharam Hadian when he declared at our 2019 Ozarks Worldview Weekend that neo-evangelicals like James White are setting up conservatives and true Christians for persecution when we speak truth about Islam. As I warned in my 2011 book, Religious Trojan Horse, a false church will set up the real church for persecution. Listen to the warning from my friend, Sharam Hadian.
When we see James White, just this past, about a month and a half ago, at a G3 conference, who was talking about how we should reach out to Muslims with the gospel. No, I have no problem there, James. But when he says, I'm deeply concerned at the level of, and he goes, I'm going to go ahead and use the term Islamophobia that does exist. Not just among Christians as a general group, but even amongst my Reformed brethren. What is he talking about? That those who dare expose what Islam is and say, yes, at the same time, we can love individual Muslims, but we must expose what Islam is. James White is using the Muslim Brotherhood term, the leftist term, the globalist term that they want to use to put us in prison. James White is using it. Shame on him. He could have simply said, hey, Christian brethren, let's not be afraid of Muslims. Let's go love them for Christ and be done with it. But that's not the intention. The intention is to throw you and I under the bus. Here you have J.D. Greear, right? The head of the Southern Baptist Convention, comes out and says, Muslims and Christians worship the same God. From Greer's latest book, The Islam Code, quote, believing wrong things about God. He believes that Muslims simply believing the wrong things about God and worshiping him incorrectly doesn't mean one is worshiping a different God. Because he believes Allah is simply an Arabic term for the God of the Bible, same God. The head of the largest denomination in America is saying this. And of course, you may remember Justin Peters, who in defense of James White and that group came out and said, quote, this is from his video, Islam does not pose a threat to the church.
Islam does not pose a threat to the church. Could they pose a threat physically? Sure. Not spiritually. Not spiritually. Islam does not pose a threat to the church. Islam does not pose a threat to the church.
Well, Justin, I would beg to differ that the 200 plus mostly Christians, the 35 Christians in Zion Church, the 22 children who were worshiping Jesus would have something different to say, Justin. Yes, individual Muslims are not, an individual Muslim may or may not be a threat. We should love them for Christ. But Islam is a threat to the church. And the irresponsibility and the dereliction of duty, in my opinion, of so-called shepherds, okay, who are saying these things, are setting us up for the global one world system where true Christians and true Jews and true conservatives are going to be persecuted at the hands of the red-green axis and the false church.
We begin to see press coming out, pointing the finger at, let's call us conservatives, MAGA, and Bible-believing Christians, evangelicals specifically, as we'll see in the next few slides. They're now beginning to express Islamophobia, some unwarranted, unfounded fear of Islam that is characterized as being a major trait of the Christian right. And if you look ahead, you can see how this whole narrative is being set up. We're going to have this grand coalition, but the only people that oppose it are these Islamophobic right-wing Christians. And you'll see as we go along that it's very specifically pointed out that Christians and evangelicals especially are the most direct enemy of this initiative of the Alliance of Virtue. If things are left unaddressed and no one has the courage to stand up, you can be certain based on history, this has happened over and over again throughout history, that the Christian community and the Jewish community will be hammered. They will be killed and persecuted. It's happened so many times throughout history. We're not immune to it in 2019. So let us all stand up for what we know is right and true and find the courage and the grace from the Lord above to represent Him in this world we live in.
Tom Littleton and I have...
All right. I mean, is that... I mean,
Yeah,
it's crazy, these clips. I mean, we have warned the church far in advance. And folks, all of this siege, sabotage, you don't have to buy it. If you're a member of the vault, you have access to the 6 hours of siege, the 8.5 hours of sabotage. It's all there. It's all there. Let me just play one more short little clip. Look at this.
Interfaith dialogue is both a spiritual and national security threat. Muslim Brotherhood scholar Syed Khatib declared, quote, "The chasm between Islam and the society of unbelievers is great, and a bridge is not to be built across it, so that the people on the two sides may mix with each other, but only so that the people of the society of unbelievers may come over to Islam," end quote.
So we became aware of a dialogue that happened between James White, who is on the left, Dr. James White, and this Sheikh Yasser Qadhi. And the dialogue happened south of Memphis, where Worldview Weekend is based. And we began to bring it to the airwaves. And we went through very simply, we just went through the dialogue, which is on YouTube. You can go watch it yourself. And just went through clip by clip by clip and examined it and tried to bring a biblical answer to why it was erroneous. And as Brandon mentioned to you guys yesterday, we were viciously attacked for month after month after month, not on substance, not on the arguments that we brought, but based on personality and the fact that we didn't love Muslims and we wanted Muslims all to go to hell and we think all Muslims are terrorists, this type of attack. So after we went public, some former individuals within law enforcement contacted us and said, and again, Brandon, to his credit, he knew Yasser Qadhi better than I did. I didn't know who he was per se, but Brandon had been following him for years. So he was all over this. And the more we began to look in Yasser Qadhi, the more troubling it became. And we had law enforcement people calling us. I had a retired FBI agent, a retired detective in the area in the state of Tennessee calling me saying, "What is wrong with you Christians? You not know who Yasser Qadhi is? Why are you having him come into the church?" And I'm like, we didn't. So we began to dig. We found out that Yasser Qadi is BFFs with Linda Sarsour. Linda Sarsour, who organized the Women's March after President Trump got inaugurated. Linda Sarsour is pro-Sharia, pro-Palestine. Here they're giving kudos to each other. Here's Yasser Qadi, and she's giving him kudos. Here's Yasser Qadi giving Linda Sarsour kudos after the Women's March. Then if that wasn't bad enough, we saw that in June of 2017, June 30th, at the ISNA conference, remember we've been talking about ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America. Here we see in the center, Nihat, who is the head of CARE. Now remember last night, he is one of the signatories in the Common Word document, the Muslim document that the Muslims initiated, a common word between us and you, where they got the idea from Surah 364 in the Quran. Remember, satanic strategy for Muslims to go to Christians and Jews and refute them. So Nihat is there. To his right is Linda Sarsour. At this very conference, she said that we pray that Allah would accept our jihad against this administration, which she had to later kind of walk back. She also said in this clip that their number one priority is to the Muslim community. It is not, quote, to assimilate. She publicly said that. It's on YouTube.
And I hope that we, when we stand up to those who oppress our communities, that Allah accepts from us that as a form of jihad, that we are struggling against tyrants and rulers, not only abroad in the Middle East or in the other side of the world, but here in these United States of America, where you have fascists and white supremacists and Islamophobes reigning in the White House. Our number one and top priority is to protect and defend our communities. It is not to assimilate.
And so, who's this gentleman on the right? Well, it's Yasser Qadi. So he's right there with the top members of the Muslim Brotherhood organization in America. We also found out that he had spoken at a CARE event. He had spoken at an ICNA event. He brought in as a fundraiser speaker to his school in Memphis, his Islamic school, Siraj Wahaj, who's an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Pleasant View Islamic School is holding its annual fundraiser. Alhamdulillah, exciting things are happening. The school is expanding. We definitely need your support. This year's fundraising event will be hosted by none other than Imam Siraj Wahaj, an all-time favorite of all of us. I will be there as well.
Several men arrested at a New Mexico compound. They were allegedly training children to carry out school shootings. How do we know that they were training children to shoot up schools?
It is now a public court document. So they got that information from what they found right at the compound on this 10-acre plot of land.
So this is not speculation.
Oh, no, this is 100% proven. Like, this is, yeah, no, anyone that disputes this at this point is crazy.
But the father of the principal guy here, for example, is a big shot imam who was an unindicted co-conspirator in the original World Trade Center bombing a quarter century ago. So this has deep roots in the most extreme Islamic circles here in America.
Right. So what's really scary about this is that when someone from Al Qaeda or ISIS gets arrested, you know they're almost certainly a fringe player. They're not a famous imam. Siraj Wahaj is different. As soon as I started studying radical Islam, he was one of the first people on my radar because he's really one of the leaders of the Muslim American community, I'm sorry to say. And he's very radical, and the type of things that he has been connected to in terms of a coalition with other groups are the types of things that this group, this compound in New Mexico, were preparing to do, were learning how to do, that type of ideology. We haven't connected the imam to that specific operation in New Mexico, but you don't have to, because what you're talking about is the extremist infrastructure that does the hard work. The easy work is the violent part. There's really two ways that you create this type of problem if you're a radical. First, you say, how do I create the person that holds the weapon? That's harder. And you do that by pushing the ideology. Imam Siraj Wahaj, for example, in 2001, spoke at an event that was literally called Jihad Camp for Young Muslims. That's public.
Yeah, they're not shy about this, are they?
Sinead, the Wahaj family background was already controversial long before the raid and the arrest in New Mexico. 39-year-old Siraj Ibn Wahaj is the son of a Brooklyn imam also named Siraj Wahaj. According to the New York Post, the imam was named by a prosecutor as an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. The elder Wahhaj was also a character witness in the trial for the notorious blind sheikh who was convicted in 1995 of plotting terror attacks in the United States. The 68-year-old is head of a mosque in Brooklyn and the leader of the Muslim Alliance in North America.
Let me just stop right there for a second. And who did Mondani bring in and campaign with and have with him running for mayor of New York City? Siraj Wahhaj. True or false, Shahram?
Absolutely true. Absolutely 100%
and so when
true.
we warned about Yasser Qadi, who brought Siraj Wahhaj to his mosque down the road from us, now he's in Plano, and we said James White should not be giving credence and credibility and telling people, hey, we want Yasser Qadi to make a video for evangelicals to show them the true face of Islam. We should not be giving this man credibility. When we warned about that, we were attacked by John MacArthur's own executive director, Phil Johnson, and others. And now we see the man we were warning about, Yasser Qadi, working with Siraj Wahhaj, is now helping to boost the man who is the mayor of New York City. But nothing to worry about, people. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to warn the church about, because you sleep well tonight. Islam is not a threat to Christians. That's what Justin Peters will tell you. You now understand, folks, why we've been screaming and hollering for all the years we have. And our biggest opposition has come, I believe, is demonically inspired from false teachers inside the hyper-Calvinist movement. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them, or into replacement theology. True or false statement, Shahram?
100% true. 100% true, Brandon, that's where we're at. Again, I said it earlier, I believe it, that this lies at the feet of the false church, these false leaders, the leaders that were either deceived or are deceivers, who held hands with this false spirit, the spirit that seeks to destroy, to bring lawlessness and corruption and destruction, that is anti-Semitic, that is against Jews, that is against Christians, that is there to subjugate the world. It is as satanic as anything that's ever been on the planet. And you think the one group that ought to have their eyes open, Brandon, Christians, spirit-filled Christians, are right now, in my opinion, the weakest, most impotent, most lukewarm, most corrupt group in this nation. Yep. They have failed. They have failed. And watching these videos, it's good to watch them. I forget how good sabotage.
I know, right? Right? Here, watch this final clip and get ready to wrap. Watch this. Here we go. Continue on this. Here we go.
The father to be her mentor. Watch.
And to my favorite person in this room, because that's mutual, is Imam Siraj Wahhaj, who has been a mentor, a motivator, an encourager of mine, someone who has taught me to speak truth to power and not worry about the consequences.
What we're not trying to do is to assimilate into the American way. We're not trying to be like other Americans. That's not our agenda. But our agenda is to give the Americans guidance.
Our number one and top priority is to protect and defend our communities. It is not to assimilate.
DiscoverTheNetworks.org reports that in a September 1991 speech in Toronto titled The Afghanistan Jihad, Wahhaj told his fellow Muslims, quote, "Those who struggle for Allah, it doesn't matter what kind of weapons you use. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter. You don't need nuclear weapons or even guns if you have faith in Allah and a knife. If Allah wants you to win, you will win, because Allah is the only one who fights. And when his hand is over your hand, whoever is at war against my friends, I declare war on them. The Americans are not your friends. The Canadians are not your friends. The Europeans are not your friends. Your friend is Allah, the messenger, and those who believe. These people will never be satisfied with you until you follow their religion," end quote. Discover the Networks also reports that in a 1992 sermon, Wahhaj emphasized the importance of jihad to those that attend his mosque. He declared, quote, "I will never ever tell people don't be violent. That is not the Islamic way. The violence has to be selected. Islam is the only answer, because it is only Islam that we do it for Allah. We are commanded to do jihad. When Allah commands us to fight, we are not stopping. No one will stop us." End quote.
Remember in the panel yesterday, I said he's also a member of the new Muslim Brotherhood political party, a founding member, a board member. So this is who Yasser Qadhi is hanging out with. And yet James White brings this individual into a church to have a dialogue, not a debate. And the question that I would have for Mr. White, and by the way, we brought all this out publicly, all of it, and all of it was simply not addressed, but we were just attacked. There was never an address about the background of Yasser Qadhi, about his connections to the Muslim Brotherhood, never addressed that I know of. It was simply character assassination after character assassination. And as I said, when you have the executive director of Grace to You, Phil Johnson,
sends out a tweet about Brandon's home address being available online. That leads to someone tweeting Brandon's address publicly in response to Phil's tweet. If that's not bad enough, then a Grace to You employee tweets where Brandon's family attends church, requiring his family to find a new church for security reasons. And why was all this done? Simply because Worldview Weekend Network exposed Phil's buddy James White and his interfaith dialogue with a jihadi Yasser Qadhi.
I find that disgusting. I find that he is unfit for service in the body of Christ as far as I'm concerned. Because they couldn't argue with the facts.
And then you have a lot of people that you wouldn't think would do this step in and defend James White. It's just a matter of taking Phil Johnson's Twitter feed and reading it. Phil Johnson tweeting, not as a private individual, but as the executive director of Grace to You Ministries, steps in on his Twitter feed and defends James White. And he says Jesus himself engaged in interfaith dialogue. He never said, well, you've got some piece of the truth, I've got a piece of the truth, let's meet in the middle and let's share with each other. Jesus never did that. Voices that you never would have thought would be involved in interfaith dialogue, in many cases are entering the fray. In other cases, they're defending those who are promoting interfaith dialogue.
Then I was curious and I went back and I looked at the Common Word document.
All right, we'll hold right there. So as we wrap here with you, I just want to come back and say, my friends, what you see happening to America, you can thank the likes of Phil Johnson, James White, John MacArthur, Justin Peters, in my opinion, and many others that defended them. But you also have guys like, I'm going to say it, Pastor Jesse Johnson. Pastor Jesse Johnson in Northern Virginia, who again, some of these guys should speak for us. We finally had to cut them off because they chose to side up with James White, their buddy, and to call me and tell me why I should cut these guys slack. And where is Jesse Johnson, a pastor in a church in Northern Virginia that I spent about 5 or 6 years growing up in and went to the Christian school, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Held Worldview Weekends there before he came on board. And what just happened in Virginia, folks? They just elected the first statewide office holder that's a Muslim, lieutenant governor. And yet the pastor of that church in Northern Virginia wanted to call me and defend Phil Johnson and make excuses. He didn't want to come out and he kind of wanted to straddle the fence. I think the size of his church, he could have been pretty influential calling out Islam. I'm not aware of him doing it, but he certainly had the chance to call out Phil Johnson publicly and James White publicly. But that would be hard for him to do since I guess he's a graduate of both master's college and seminary. And I think was even on the board of some of those organizations. So I guess you can't go against the club. You think this has been a virus that's impacted people? Yeah. Compromised people? I think so. Theologically, it has compromised them, I think. Closing comment, Jerome, because now we're realizing where we are, how it got here in part, who helped take part in this takeover of Islam. And I don't see it ending because sadly, I don't see the Trump administration doing what they were doing the first term, which is calling it out. I see them going into financial deals with these people between Qatar and UAE and Saudi Arabia. So I'm here to tell you, my friends, we, aside from the Lord Jesus Christ, the only hope we have is for Christians like you and me to speak up and quit worrying about politics and quit worrying about your so-called favorite Bible ministry. And a lot of you, you just need to get up to speed because you're being deceived. So deceived, right?
Absolutely, Brandon. Absolutely. Agree with you 100%. They are being deceived. Their loyalty must be to the Lord and to his word and not to any Bible ministry, Bible teacher. And thank you for saying what you said about the Trump administration. I was going to say earlier when you were talking about Mike Johnson, that not only is Mike Johnson not showing a spine, in my opinion, President Trump is not the same man that he was in this first term. He was a fighter. He was unconventional. He was outside the fray, and that was what made him.
And he was calling out Islam point blank, 100% on target, exactly. And we were amening him over and over.
Exactly, which is what gave us a sense of hope that in that first term some things were going to happen. When our friend Phil Haney, who you played the video clips of tonight, was rumored to be about to be invited back into the administration before he was, quote, mysteriously committed suicide, which we know was nonsense. He was murdered for what he knew, whatever it was that he knew that was inside this government, this deep state. So we need to pray for the backbone of whoever these leaders are. But I agree with you, and I said it last night after we got on the air. I said it on my Facebook page. I said, it's a sad day because all that we've been warning, when you see it come to fruition, you don't rejoice. It's not like, oh, wow, look, we were right. No, you are grieved because it's like, it's, oh no, we were right. Oh no, everything that we've warned indeed is happening. And I don't see a path forward right now, Brandon, short of the Lord intervening, short of God intervening himself. I don't see a path forward from the Trump administration. You said it. And thank you for saying it, because most people are not going to say it. They're not going to say that this administration is now beholden to Muslim money, to Arab money, to Middle Eastern money. And because of that, that's why they will not say Islam. Zohran Mamdani said, I'm a Muslim. Not one person from the Trump administration that I heard. Not Carol Levitt, not Steve Miller, not Trump himself, certainly not his Middle East envoy. Nobody from the Trump administration that I heard actually would say Zohran Mamdani is a Muslim first. His allegiance is before us to the Democrat Socialists, that their own acknowledgement, Brandon, is we are dismantling the Democrat Party. There is no longer a Democrat Party. This is now the new, quote, Democrat Party. It's the Democrat Socialists of America. We are now full-blown Marxists. He said that second. He is a Muslim first, and nobody in the administration has the guts to say it. But here's my challenge for pastors. If people want to get this video clip tonight, I would highly encourage you to get this segment tonight and share it. If pastors had guts, here's what they would do for the next month. This is my pastor challenge for the next 4 weeks. Spend the next 4 weeks, go before your congregation and say, I was wrong on the threat that Islam poses to our nation and to Christianity. Look at what's going on overseas with all the massacre of Christians, and now look at what's happened in our backyard in America. I was wrong, and from this day forward, we're going to begin to teach our congregation what Islam is, what spirit is behind it. And, oh, by the way, we're going to actually teach them to evangelize biblically, scripturally, not interfaith. We renounce all this common ground, all this interfaith, all this ecumenicalism, all this belief that we can live in community together, because before there was a James White, there was a Rick Warren. Before there was these people, this was already being infiltrated in the American church. They got to come out over the next month. And folks, I encourage you, demand that of your pastor over the next month. Because if they say nothing about what just happened in America and what we were warning about for the last 7, 8, 10, whatever number of years and more, then they have shown they're not a true shepherd, in my opinion. A shepherd of the word of God, perhaps, but not a shepherd in the sense of protecting the sheep from the wolves that are about to come, that are in our nation and are going to devour God's people.
And
God
none
is
of
sovereign.
this, and none of this is personal. It's all principle, and it's all doctrinal and theological and Christian worldview. That's all we present. We've just been presenting facts. We're not attacking anyone. We're disagreeing with them, but that's not an attack. We're refuting them, but that's not an attack. We're not going personal. We're staying on the facts and the principle. Now, those who hear it may take it personal, but that's, I think, only because their conscience is being convicted, if that's possible. I don't know. I'm not sure some of them are at a point where their conscience could be convicted, to be honest with you, having dealt with them. But this isn't personal. We're not making personal attacks or trying to degrade someone on a personal level. We're trying to stick to the theological worldview, doctrinal issues. And if any of those people disagree with us, they're welcome to come on the air and refute us. I don't think Justin Peters will, but he's welcome to come on the air live, as well as Phil Johnson, as well as James White, any of them. And we've offered this to them again and again. But for some reason, they don't want to do it. But they're welcome to come on and have a debate with Sharam and I. But I don't think they're going to call. But this is Bible, okay? This is Bible. And if you want to know how we got where we are, we've been trying to tell you. And we're now there. And it's only going to ramp up quicker and quicker. People are going to be shocked at how fast this goes. They're going to be shocked at how fast this goes now that it's being so mainstreamed. Are you shocked, by the way, when you watch these video clips? I mean, I'm shocked, not because I didn't believe it then, but how on target we were and now how fast it's happened in just 7 to 8 years.
Brandon, by the grace of God, right? I mean, when you feel convicted that God is giving you a very clear message, as he did with you. I mean, remember, sabotage came out of the fact that when we were physically threatened
in Sioux Falls,
we were physically threatened in Sioux Falls by Ehab Jabber, the Muslim from Saudi Arabia. That led us to realize, wow, this is getting real. This is not any longer just a war of words. It's like with Charlie Kirk's assassination, right? There's a bunch of people that kind of woke up, were like, wow, okay, this is no longer a war of ideas or a war of words. They want to kill us. So when you decided to do sabotage, when you decided to do these documentaries, and when you decided that we got to tell the story, no matter how much we're hated, no matter how much people don't believe us, what you did and what you did tonight is you laid a foundation stone. You laid a foundation stone because the true prophets in the Old Testament, Brandon, what they did was they warned, and their hands were clean. I think it's fair to say tonight for you and I and those who are involved, our hands are clean. We have done our part to warn the church, to warn the nation. You laid a foundation stone. You did what you were called to do, and we did what we said what we were called to say. And it was not popular then, and it's not popular now. But we knew we had to say it. And oh wow, when I watch these clips, I'm blown away. I'm like, we actually said all that. Like, that's incredible. So thank you for documenting it. Thank you for people need to get copies of it. And thank you tonight for letting me come on and relive that. And it's a moment of encouragement, honestly, because it's like, Lord, we heard you. We heard your voice, and we're doing our part. And we're not stopping.
No, we're not stopping.
We're not stopping.
And you know, Sharam, we just put out a letter that's still going out to a lot of our donors. We're telling them we're having to raise more money for security.
Yeah.
Because of, and I'm not going to get into a lot of details on different things now, but we're having to raise more money for security.
Yeah.
And now we have an attorney general. Look at this guy. He won, I guess, who was threatening his political opponents and talking about death to the political opponents and their children, you know? Yeah. And now we have a lady. Do we edit that lady up, Logan? The one saying the Dems need to get on board with what they're doing? I mean, it seems like we're going to enter a phase and are entering a phase of more political assassinations, more political violence against conservatives and Christians and patriots. And we're having to increase our security, which costs a lot of money. And I wrote this the other day, and we're already seeing it out. And this was before this guy got elected, the attorney general. in Virginia, which is showing you the culture is okay with this, I believe. A lot of people are.
Yeah.
We now have gone to the dehumanization and violence stage, right?
Yes.
And now this lady, listen, we've had to edit it because of her language. Listen to what she's saying. Roll it, please.
Finally, if you think the Zoran thing is happening just in New York and you think people are waking up only in New York City, you're mistaken. Look at this clip of a wine mom at the No Kings March. Play the clip.
Whatever his name was?
Charlie Kirk, ma'am?
Yeah, him is horrible. Horrible.
Charlie Kirk is horrible?
Yes, I'm glad he's not here.
You're glad he's dead?
Yes.
Why would you say something like that, ma'am?
Because he was horrible on the campuses, the college campuses. Horrible person.
You know what? I do the exact same thing.
Well,
would you be glad if I would die?
Maybe. I'd have to think about it.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Your friend just said she'd be happy if I died.
I think we need to...
So listen up, Democratic establishment. You can either jump on board with this or we're coming after you in the same way that we come after MAGA. Period. Stop taking AIPAC money. Go on an I'm sorry I took AIPAC money atonement tour if you want to stay in power. Stop missing out on these big rallies. Hakeem and Chuck should have been front and center introducing the next mayor of New York City, but no, they wouldn't show up because they're that are beholden to the same corporations that that helped Donald Trump get elected. And this is just an embarrassment. Kudos to Bernie, to AOC, to Zoran. And that woman out in somewhere middle America saying, Charlie Kirk, he was a racist, he was a piece. There are so many more of us than there are of them. And these Democrats that continue to play patty cake with corporations and lobbyists, nobody wants that. Nobody wants you. We want politicians to speak freely and look at what the benefit is. Look at what is happening in New York. And you are sitting on the sidelines, running your social media like complete dorks. It's embarrassing. Get together, Hakeem and Chuck, seriously get your together because the Democratic Party is moving on. We are moving on.
So it sounds like to me they're wanting to basically continue that kind of, that's now going to become mainstream politics, mainstream behavior of members at the highest levels of Washington politics.
Well, Brandon, the other night on my show, I played a clip about the Democrat Socialists of America. As I said earlier, they've said that the Democrat Party is done. That's what they announced. They said the Democrat Party is dead. We are now the party. We are now, and what they called themselves was revolutionaries. So I think last night one of your guests said, we're already in civil war. You know, it's the lack of reality of understanding we're all already in civil war because the Dominionist Christians are saying revival any moment. Revival is going to break out and America is going to turn and the golden age and this kind of language. By the way, you know, we didn't call out one of the worst false teachers, which is Paula White, you know, Trump's so-called faith advisor. But this is the norm. This and you played the clip of Siraj Wahhaj. So they get along with the Muslims because the Muslims say, this is not only the norm, it's our command. We're not going to condemn violence because violence is a part of advancing Islam. It always has been. Hello? It has been. So again, those who deny this now are the ones who are not in reality. They're the ones who are deluded, who deny that this is where the world's at. This is where America's at. This is not politics. This is civil war. Because they are arming, and this is foreign involvement, you said earlier, from Qatar, from Iran, from these other foreign nations that are trying to destabilize this nation. But it is also a spiritual battle because we are in this place, Brandon, that, and notice the first thing she said, right? It's AIPAC money. How come, like you said earlier, the Qataris, what was the number you said? How many billions of dollars? 40
billion is the last report I read.
$40 billion. And they want to look at AIPAC? AIPAC?
And as a woman, she's not worried about what Islam does to women. I mean, you could say all you want about different groups, but do you see the Jews throwing gays off buildings? Hanging on by cranes? Do you see them making women wear hijabs and cover themselves when their eyeballs poking out? Do you see them telling the women can't drive cars? Do you see them, you can't get an education unless your husband says so? You can't get a job unless your husband says so? I mean, do you see them beating women who are caught in affairs? Do you see them stoning women or caught in affairs? You would think that out of everything going on, they would say, our concern is feminists and women is Islam. But no, they're busy worried about the Jews.
That's right. It's the demonic...
Which has Jews which those women, they're in the IDF. They're wearing pants. Yeah. They're wearing pants. They're not wearing hijabs. They're not wearing long robes. They're in fatigues. They're carrying guns. They're in the highest levels of government. They're not subjugated. You would think they'd be screaming, thank the Lord for the Jewish people that let the women practice freedom of their life. But no, they're worried about the Jews, not the Muslims.
Nothing about this makes sense.
Then a spiritual deception.
Exactly. It's a spiritual deception because it is so ludicrous. It is so absurd that they would defend Zoran Mamdani and they would defend Islam and yet attack the Jews. Once again, it's the Jews. And so, but as who was it on your show last night said, again, they've already captured the left. Yep. They're now trying to poison the right, right?
Indeed, they are.
So this is where we're at, but it starts with every one of us. So again, I go back to everybody watching tonight, share this with your pastor and challenge them. Yep. It's going to tell a lot. It's going to tell a lot about, just like after Charlie Kirk's assassination, just like after we're watching Christians be massacred around the world, this will tell a lot about the church that you're a part of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your pastor that is supposed to be a shepherd. And you said it, Brandon, this is not personal attacks. We are trying to hold to biblical offices. What is a shepherd? A shepherd is one who protects the sheep from the wolves. Amen. We are witnessing the wolves in our nation. We are trying to protect the sheep from the wolves. Let's see if they'll do it this month. Challenge them in love.
Amen. TILministry.com, TILministry.com. What a powerful program tonight. Thank you, Shahram.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for covering all that. I so appreciate it.
No, thank you. And folks, if you appreciate the fact we've been lifting up a clarion call for so long, even under incredible attacks, and even physical, literal threats against our life, which a guy did 7 months in federal prison for. If you appreciate the fact we're not backing down, we're not cowarding, we're not cowards, we've clearly proven it. We're not going to be like Mike Johnson and all the other GOP people. They want to say, well, he's a Marxist, he's a socialist. No, he's an Islamist and a Marxist, both. If you appreciate the fact that we're standing up for truth, for you, your family, your children, your grandchildren, and we're still out of here lifting up the shout of warning. If you appreciate that, we have to have support. Stop, in my opinion, wasting your money, sending it to most of these so-called ministries that are into replacement theology, hyper-Calvinism, dominion theology, kingdom now. They don't have the courage to talk about Islam, to warn about the dangers of interfaith dialogue. Why are you sending them your money? We have what will be next year, a 36-year track record. You saw some of that track record tonight. We need your support. We have to have a big November and December for end of the year giving. Please go now. worldviewfoundation.com and make a contribution. worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address. Can you give $500 tonight? $1,000? $250, $100? Can you even give $5 a month? Can you set up an automatic monthly contribution at worldviewfoundation.com of $5 a month? How about this? Can you join the vault? You'll get, if you say, well, I'd like to join somewhere I can support you and get something. Okay, join the vault. worldviewtube.com/vault. Have access to 36 years, coming up on 36 years of information. My book from 1990. All my books forward, including my brand new book on Hamas. Just came out Monday. You don't need to buy it. It's in the vault. You don't need to buy any of these documentaries we're playing clips from tonight. They're in the vault. All of our conferences from years gone by, including our conference from a few weeks ago, all in the vault. worldviewtube.com/vault. Will you join? $7.99 a month. Isn't what we're doing worth $7.99 a month to support us? worldviewtube.com/vault or worldviewfoundation.com. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. What a broadcast. I'm exhausted. That's emotional. That takes it out of you. And I think a lot of you feel the same way right now. You're tired. Roll the music, guys. Again, we appreciate you guys. We appreciate your praying for us. See how tired I am? We appreciate your praying for us and supporting us. But also go to worldviewstore.com. Get these free business cards. Pass them out. We need more people to hear this kind of truth, don't you think? What do you got to lose to give away a free business card that tells them, hey, go listen to this network for free? It's at worldviewstore.com. Get these free cards. Pass them out, will you? Thank you so much. Until next time, I'm Brandon House. May God save America. Take care.